999ers risk their lives every day keeping us safe.
We do this job to help people.
But all too often, they're abused and attacked.
The vehicle threw me like a rag doll. It should have killed me.
These personal attacks on police, paramedics and firefighters are at an all-time high.
I'll admit I was absolutely terrified.
We don't put on this uniform to be assaulted.
Leaving them traumatised and unable to work.
It felt like I was saying goodbye to my career.
But while the violent criminals responsible are hunted down and brought to justice,
You're under arrest. You do not have to tell anything about.
our protectors fight to get well and back on the job.
I was not going to give up. There was no way.
It's took a hell of a lot of hard work to get back to the place I'm just now.
Ready to face the next critical incident. Today, the worrying trend of rising chemical attacks.
The most blood-curdling of screams came down the air. For Sarah to react like that, to us, it told us this was pretty serious.
A police officer is called to deal with a man making terrifying threats.
He wanted to hurt an officer, he wanted to use a machete, he wanted to harm us, kill us.
And even a vicious headbutt doesn't destroy an emergency medical technician's passion for the job.
I've chosen to help people, so I have to get on with it.
While crime is often associated with big cities, they don't own the monopoly on it, as police in Warwickshire can attest.
You probably expect violence against officers to be more prevalent in the urban areas, but even in a really safe place like Warwickshire, we see officers assaulted certainly several times a week. We accept as police officers that we run towards danger when others run away, so there's inevitability that officers put themselves in difficult and dangerous situations, but it doesn't mean we should accept it when people attack officers.
And one officer working this rural Warwickshire patch is Detective Sarah Skinner.
Every day is a challenge. It's a hard job, really hard job. I'm not going to say it's not, because it is, but every day is different, and the rewards are fantastic.
Sarah was first a PCSO and then a police constable, but she always wanted to be a detective. And in 2015, she got the chance to join the Criminal Investigation Department, or CID, for 3 months.
I was part of Proactive CID, which was the burglary team. We dealt with drug offences, robberies and managing the prolific offenders within the area. Sarah was on attachment with us for a period of a few months.
For Sarah, this was a golden opportunity. But just 3 days from finishing her secondment, a violent incident changed everything.
We were targeting an area in Lamington where it was suspected that a burglary was going to take place and had taken place before.
It's all connected with alleyways and routes that aren't really accessible by cars, so she had the idea of going up on a bike just to see if there's anything suspicious about, and she'd call us up and we'd help her out.
And my thinking was, they won't think I'm a police officer, they'll think I'm just somebody out on a bike. I cycled down this road. I think the only person I probably passed that day was Amy.
The area that the incident happened was my patrol area. There's 2 houses. I was going to go to the second one because I knew the occupants were away on holiday. I looked around, couldn't see anyone. Came back over the fence and happened to run into Sarah and mentioned that I'd checked it all, looked okay. Everything fine, drove off.
I approached the area and saw a car that just looked out of place and called the reg through to the controller. So I was in plain clothes but had my uniform on underneath, a stab vest and my radio, but it was all covert, you couldn't see it. As I was circling around on my bike, not trying to look too out of place, I saw 3 men coming out the side of a property.
There's 3 males walking away from the address, all got caps on. I'm currently pretending to be on my mobile phone, but they've clocked me.
I asked them to stop identify myself as a police officer. And at this point, we had like the roadway between us. They'd come out of the house, I was on the other side of the road. They had lots of options. They could have all run away. They knew, as I know now, that the car was just round the corner waiting for them. They could have run away, they could have gone anywhere, but they decided to run at me. I was still on the bike then, and they pulled me from the bike, shouted at me, started to kick me. I think I'd hit my button at that point. And then they poured liquid onto my face.
The most blood-curdling of screams came down the air. We recognised immediately that it was Sarah. Sarah's quite a resilient individual. She deals with confrontation quite a lot, so for Sarah to react like that to us, it told us this was pretty serious.
The attackers have poured some sort of chemical agent on Sarah's face.
It was very manic. I just remember Sarah on the radio screaming that she'd been sprayed in the face.
It was stinging. I think at first, what was it? What have they done? What have they done to my face? A few more blows to the back, and they went, and I relayed everything on the air.
As Sarah lies on the ground in agony, her attackers jump in a car.
And then I've managed to sort of pull myself from under the bike onto the green, which was next to me, as the BMW went over my bike.
It's a narrow escape for Sarah, but she still has a chemical burning her face. Later, as the attackers flee, another officer is in danger.
I just remember driving down, looking for her, looked in my rearview mirror, and this car was just there, flying down the street.
While sadly there's nothing new about violence, what is changing is the means by which it is carried out. Chemical attacks are a relatively recent phenomenon, but worryingly are becoming a bit of a national trend. In this clip, ammonia has been thrown into a crowd outside a fast food chain. A police officer's body cam picks up the immediate aftermath, where people can be seen running away in pain. The chemical was thrown by a group of men from a gang who had spotted a rival gang in the restaurant. One woman is unable to open her eyes, and the policewoman desperately tries to rinse them out with water, even as she herself is gagging from the fumes. 2 officers and 2 members of the public were taken to hospital. Thankfully, none sustained lasting injuries. 3 men pleaded guilty to 4 counts of administering a poison or noxious substance with intent to injure. 1 was jailed for 2 years and 9 months, and the others for 2 years and 11 months, in what was described as a horrendous and indiscriminate attack. It's 8 a.m. in West Bromwich. Bob Burness and Holly Seymour are preparing for their shift with West Midlands Ambulance Service.
I've been working for the West Midlands Ambulance for just over 11 years now, since I retired from the fire service. I'm classed as an ambulance technician, which is 1 step down from the paramedic. We can do most of the skills apart from giving drugs and a few other major procedures, but we're there to assist and treat the patient as best as possible. You get on with pretty much everybody on station because you're all in the same boat and you support each other throughout.
You're a family when you're at work. You know, you're quite a close family because you all understand what each other's going through.
In what promises to be a busy day, their first call has just come in.
We're being sent to a female who has had a fall.
An elderly woman has fallen at home and has hurt her head.
The lump to the head and the eye is new this morning.
Good. Have you got any pain anywhere other than your head?
The lady has developed a black eye. Bob and Holly think it's best to get her to hospital.
Pains on the head, you can't see inside, so...
So you're going to be taking her in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I enjoy helping people. in whatever capacity I can. I have done for many years, and some of the time you are helping people at their worst, other times you're just helping them when they're stuck.
Bob finds most patients are extremely grateful for his help, but sadly, that's not always the case.
Quite a few members of staff have been assaulted over the years, ranging from punched, kicked, spat at.
And in 2017, Bob was a victim himself.
I was crewed up with a paramedic, and we had a paramedic student with us. We were responding to an unconscious male, believed to be in their 20s, in the stairwell of a tower block in West Bromwich. On arrival, we gained access to the tower block, and we found a young male curled up on the stairs with some bags of shopping around him. The student, who needs practice assessing, started to assess the patient. The patient was unresponsive at first. He woke up and was exceptionally offensive, called us terrorists. What are you not doing here in your green tracksuit? You think you're something? And then he threw a beer can at the student. Stood up and squared up to her, so I've stepped forward in between them to try and prevent the damage to the student, at which point he's headbutted me. Initially, it's straightforward shock of, I know I got headbutted and I rocked back, and I put my hands up and then it's sort of, oh, that's my blood, that's not right. And when I looked, he's chased the paramedic up the stairs to the next landing. I've gone up to assist, and between us we've pulled him back down the stairs to the landing that we were originally on, and we've just held him on the floor.
Bob presses his emergency button to call for backup, and his colleague speaks directly to the control room.
Yeah, thanks. Can we get the police immediately? This patient has headbutted my crewmate, and we're having to restrain him, so we need police immediately, please.
We've already done it. Thank you very much. We'll update them.
At that point, the adrenaline's starting to wear off, because we were there, as I say, quite a few minutes, and it's just sort of, I'm not letting him get up, because if he gets up, he's probably going to smack me again, or he'll run away. Either way, he's staying on the floor till the police come. We restrained him then until a second crew and the police arrived. Police put cuffs on the gentleman. I went outside where I was cared for by a second crew that had been sent. Got quite a severe nosebleed, and it was predominantly soft tissue damage to my nose. I'd got a couple of loose teeth, and the following day I developed a pain in my neck, whiplash, from having my head rocked back rather violently.
While Bob was seen to, a second ambulance crew took the offender to hospital.
He was taken to Sandwell Hospital, where he became offensive and aggressive towards the staff again. He was discharged from their care as refusing treatment. He was escorted out and immediately arrested by the police and taken away for questioning.
The offender pleaded guilty to assaulting Bob and was sentenced to 12 weeks in prison. He was also fined £265 and was ordered to pay £100 to Bob.
Still have not seen any of the compensation. I don't expect we ever will.
"24 hours after the incident, Bob was back at work.
Personally, it took me a few days to get over the impact of it. I then managed to cope in my own fashion quite well.
Despite his injuries, Bob wanted some good to come of the incident, so he allowed his bloodied photograph to be used as part of a national campaign to impose tougher sentences on those who attack emergency service workers.
It's quite dramatic, so it's the perfect thing for the poster for assaults on staff.
But the press attention had an unexpected and unwanted side effect.
I got interviewed by several press companies, media companies, etc. And as each one kept telling me, look at this photo, isn't it terrible? Doesn't that make you feel ill? I became to feel more and more stressed about it. So about a month after the actual event, I was struggling more than on the actual event.
Bob took action quickly.
I realised that I needed to do something, so I used things like guided meditations, self-hypnosis, also talking with friends helps.
Bob is still incredibly passionate about his job and the good he can do in his role.
I've chosen to help people, so I have to get on with it. We're just far too damn busy.
You know.
And as well as helping patients, Bob wants to help his colleagues. He volunteers with SALS, a staff advice liaison scheme.
It's to help any of the staff with any of their psychological difficulties, either mental health deterioration or such as traumatic events.
Because of his training in guided meditation and other therapies, Bob provides one-to-one support for staff members.
Each of those paths will take you to where you need to be in order to resolve the issues today.
We go through processes which help them to overcome the difficulties they've got. It's all there to help people get themselves into a better frame of mind and to deal with whatever difficulties that they're having at that point. It's also to show them that they're not alone and that there is help out there.
Taking it away forever.
More and more people are understanding that mental health isn't weakness, it's just everybody has a limit. No, we've just been stood down and given a new job. We're going to somebody with breathing problems, potentially life-threatening. We just go where we're sent.
Still to come. A patient turns on a paramedic without warning.
Having to restrain the patient on the floor at the minute.
I was completely shocked at how somebody can change so quickly.
And courage during a chemical attack bags a bravery award for Sarah.
Rightfully, her actions have been recognised both with a commendation locally from our Chief Constable and also a National Police Bravery Award.
It's overwhelming, unbelievable, and I'm very grateful.
Oh dear.
After 11 years as a police officer, it's fair to say that PC Lloyd Stone has found himself in the odd tight spot.
The response team look after a large area, which is Redditch and Bromsgrove, answering 999 calls. We get called to all different types of jobs. I mean, I carry a taser, so essentially we'll go to probably the more dangerous jobs.
Lloyd is a well-liked member of the team in West Mercia Police.
He's a bit of a character, but he's good. He's someone you can rely on anyway.
He's very good. He's a very good police officer. He's caring, tries to be funny. We get on really well. Yeah, he's like my best friend.
In fact, they're more than best friends, which is why PC Mary Stone might be slightly biased.
He's my husband. Yeah, we're married. We met at work, and yeah.
Mate, my brew. Being married to a police officer, I think it's easy because if you've had a bad time or a bad job, you can both relate to it. It also has the other effect that if I ever hear on the radio or she's in trouble or vice versa, you do tend to hear that and want to know that they're safe and well.
I think the respect for the police has gone, definitely. It's always the ones that you don't expect as well. So you can go to someone, you think, oh, this is going to be a really quick job, and it just escalates and turns into... That's a bit like your job, isn't it? It just turns from a nothing?
Yeah, it was an absolutely nothing incident, and then it just went from bad to worse.
In August 2018, Lloyd was working a night shift when a call came in about a man threatening to hurt a police officer.
It was coming towards the end of the shift. We'd been working nearly 11 hours. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, it was dark. We were actually looking after the area where all the nightclubs are kicking out. They started kicking out about 3. And we had a call from the comms stating that there was someone's just phoned up threatening that they wanted to hurt someone, mainly a police officer. And I recall the word machete was being used, and they wanted to really harm an officer. So that was concerning. The good thing on that evening, there was 3 of us in a van, a public order van, because we were looking after the town. We started to drive around to the location where we thought this male would be. This is the one-way system where the nightclubs are. And then we noticed a gentleman who was sitting on this wall just here by the bins. I pulled up alongside, ran down my window, spoke to this gentleman, and instantly I knew that this was the bloke that I'd been calling, because he started to just be abusive. But he was saying such threats that he wanted to hurt an officer, he wanted to use a machete, he wanted to harm us, kill us. Words to that effect. Obviously, it's really alarming, and you don't want to put yourself in danger. Because of what we'd heard and what he was saying, I took control of the male, held his arm. We weren't forceful or anything like that. Took control of him, we asked him some questions. He was just constantly abusive.
PC Al Jones was working with Lloyd that night, and together they made the decision to remove the man from the area.
So in the end, we popped in the van to take him back to his parents, to just get him out of the way, really. And that didn't quite go to plan when we got to the other end.
Yeah, so we arrived at the location, knocked on the door, spoke to his parents. They came out, hoping that they'll probably calm down the son, give us a bit of history, what's going on. But straight away, as soon as the male saw his parents, he started kicking off even more.
He was basically refusing to get out of the van for whatever reason, and it got to the point where we physically had to remove him from the van.
He jumped towards me, pushed me with both hands. I went obviously falling backwards, and then that's when he pulled his right hand back to punch me.
He looked like he was going to take a swing at Lloyd, so the other 2 officers that were there, Lloyd included, have sort of grabbed hold of him, and then it's just a general struggle.
They managed to tackle this gentleman before he laid the punch, grab his arms, but as they did that, we all fell towards me.
And then it's just ended up in a bit of a scramble, and next thing I know, Lloyd's on the ground with this lad on top of him.
And then I twisted my leg, and I was in the middle of the street somewhere like this, and I was just lying on the floor. My knee cracked, you could hear it. And the pain, I've never had pain like it.
You could just see, because I could see his face from where I was. He didn't look the best. So I went over and basically picked this lad up off him. I was expecting Lloyd's leg to be facing the other way, if I'm honest, but fortunately it wasn't, but he wasn't in a good way.
We had no choice than to arrest him, unfortunately. I've been in so many jobs in my time, in my years of career of being in West Mids, being in West Mercia. I've had terrible incidents dealing with, horrific, life-changing. And this was something that was such a small job, didn't need to happen. And it had such an impact with an injury in myself.
As extra officers arrived on the scene, Lloyd was transferred to hospital.
I was off that evening, and I woke up to a text message about 5 o'clock in the morning saying that he was in hospital. So I called him straight away, went down to see him at the hospital in A&E. I think he was in a lot of pain. He was trying to write it off as if it was nothing. He was saying, oh, I've just hurt my leg, it's fine, I can walk, it'll be nothing. He didn't really see what the fuss was about at the time and just wanted to go home.
But unfortunately, Lloyd was wrong. The doctors told him he had severe ligament and muscle damage to his knee.
I then spent the next nearly 10 hours in hospital getting treated. Just over a month and a half, I was constantly in a splint. That was uncomfortable because my leg was just straight out all the time and I couldn't bend it. It was really, really swollen. I had crutches and I couldn't do anything. I was stuck at home.
But the worst news for Lloyd was the recovery time. He'd be off work for 2.5 months, which would have significant repercussions on his family life.
Yeah, I hurt my leg, but the impact was the main thing with me. At the time, we discovered as a family, we're quite a close family. My mother, unfortunately, had cancer. She only found out a couple of months before, and that was horrific for the family. We thought we were going to lose her. We thought we were going to lose her mum. And they rely on me as a son to help, and I take her for all her hospital appointments, and I couldn't be there. I wasn't there, couldn't do it. And then I've got a son, and he's 4. He was 4 at the time. They live quite far away. I couldn't drive there. I couldn't go and see my son. That was just horrific for me because that's something, you know, anyone who's got kids will understand that you want to see your family, and I'm close to him, really close to him. Yeah, not seeing my son was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And I never want to do that again. I always want to be there for my son, and I always will be. Yeah, it was hard. I had to rely on my wife now to do everything for me, everything from taking me to work, and that's after recovery, to helping me at home. I couldn't move.
The health and well-being of our staff is paramount. One thing that we always do is ensure there is a point of contact for those officers that are injured to this extent. But when people are off sick for a sustained period, like, you know, Lloyd was away from work for 2 months, it's really important that that connectivity remains, because when they come back into the workplace, which can be difficult if you've been away for some period of time, they need to feel at ease, they need to feel supported and know that they're supported.
The support from the bosses, that was comforting to know that they were phoning me on my own phone to see how I was, and that you're grateful for. You know that people are there for you.
Lloyd's attacker was convicted of assault occasioning actual bodily harm. He was sentenced to a community order, which included carrying out unpaid work for 100 hours within the next 12 months. He was also ordered to pay court costs of £135 and compensation of £300.
He did get the result that we wanted.
As Lloyd likes to stay on his toes, he's aiming high for the future.
It's about helping people get through the challenging times in life. I don't want to sound cliche, but I do like to make that difference with people. I do like to feel like that, you know, oh, here's PC Stone, who's a good one he is, he'll help you. I want to be like that. I want people to feel that way. You're beautiful, so I like that side. Oh, and it's gorgeous though.
It is actually.
I'm just a normal guy at the end of the day. I go home, I take off my uniform, I sit with my other half, I go and help her with the horses, I go and see my son.
Good job there, Lloyd.
Thank you. Now that my injury's over, hopefully we can enjoy going forwards.
Onwards and upwards.
Onwards and upwards.
Ambulance services across the country have seen a dramatic increase in call-outs, to deal with people under the influence of a dangerous street drug known as black mamba. Its signature side effect is loss of body control, but it can also lead to psychosis, vomiting, and breathing difficulties.
The use of substances like mamba is quite a commonplace for the ambulance service to deal with. In the city centre, it's quite regular that an ambulance is attending somebody who smoked mamba, and they actually have a nickname for us. They call us the Mambulance. And you'll turn up at a job and they'll all be stood around, oh, it's a ambulance, it's an ambulance. So it seems acceptable that people take these drugs and expect that an ambulance is going to turn up and help them.
And it was this exact scenario that Amy was called to on a shift in 2016.
I think it was around 9 AM. I think we were heading back to station and we got a job come through as a Category 2 unconscious patient in the street. The street he's on is quite a busy street, and for a male at 9 o'clock in the morning to be unconscious was making me question what was the cause for him to be unconscious. When we arrived, he wasn't unconscious. He seemed pretty well dressed. There was no obvious signs initially of any drug abuse or alcohol abuse. He seemed reasonably compliant, was talking freely to us. We then invited him onto the back of the ambulance because there was quite a lot of people around and it's a bit more private. He said he didn't really know what had happened. He'd got some chest pain, so we asked if we could do some checks. He agreed. I noticed that he had some ECG changes, so we were questioning more about what had happened, and he started to become a bit verbally aggressive. At this point, obviously, my crewmate stepped in and told him to calm down and that we were just trying to help him. And we carried on assessing him. He settled back down, no problems. I needed to put a cannula into his arm to give him some further treatment. He agreed to this. I'd explained to him what was going to happen, that there was going to be a sharp scratch, and as I touched the patient's skin with the needle, he lashed out twice with his feet, kicking me and catching my right arm. As I went to step back, he caught me again. My crewmate has then ended up wrestling with him, got the patient to the floor and was tackling him on the floor. It was such a sudden reaction and we wasn't expecting it, so I was completely shocked at how somebody can change so quickly.
7-4, can we have immediate police, please?
We'd press the emergency button, which triggers an automatic police response.
This gentleman's just attacked both of us. Having to restrain the patient on the floor at the minute.
We were waiting for the police to arrive for a few minutes, at which point they arrived and detained the patient.
It was subsequently found that the patient was under the influence of black mamba. He was charged with actual bodily harm on Amy and common assault on her crewmate. He was given a 14-month suspended sentence, as well as a community service order.
He chose to take drugs and he chose to have that in his system, so I felt he should be fully responsible for his behaviour and that maybe he should have got prison. Got to hospital. I didn't think that I'd had any significant damage to my arm. I thought I'd possibly just got a bad bruise. We had an X-ray and it was confirmed that I'd got a fracture to the distal radius.
Amy's broken wrist meant that she was off work for 6 weeks.
The months that followed after the injury were pretty emotional. I think it affected me more than I thought it did initially. It made me scared to come back to work. It made me question myself as a paramedic. It did affect the way I was thinking and it definitely affected my confidence.
Despite being anxious, Amy was keen to get back to active duty.
I've always wanted to be a paramedic as far as I can remember. I think it really stemmed from my granddad was a medic in the armed forces and he used to talk about his job and how much he used to love his job, and I think it's his stories that made me interested.
And Amy's grandfather would surely be proud to see how she's conquered her fears.
It took me a while to get over the initial incident, but once being back on the road, I think it kind of makes you forget that not everybody's like that, and you go out to people and see how thankful they are. It reminds you of why I did the job and reminds me of why I'm a paramedic.
In Lamington Spa, Detective Sarah Skinner was the victim of a chemical attack as she tried to stop a gang of burglars.
They pulled me from the bike and then they poured liquid onto my face.
Sarah's attackers have jumped into their car to get away, but Sarah's colleague Amy is blocking their exit.
November 62 heard a message, a black BMW has just flown past me down the road.
I just remember driving down, looking for her, looked in my rear view mirror, and this car was just there flying down the street at quite a fast speed. And I realised very quickly I had absolutely nowhere to go other than to go on a curb.
That BMW that's flown past me has gone right.
As Amy is a PCSO, she isn't wearing any protective equipment. And even with her injuries, Sarah is more concerned for her colleagues' safety.
She was on the grass by the bike, and I remember she screamed at me not to get out of the police car because I had nothing on me. But I did, because I knew she was there, and at that point everyone else had turned up.
3 males still on foot, exercise, beige jumper, maroon jacket, all wearing caps, all slim build.
I got out of the car and she was just shouting details about descriptions about what they looked like. She was all about the job. She didn't show any concern about herself whatsoever. I could see that her skin was reddening around one side of her face. There was like residue, like a liquid residue that was over her glasses. And the first thought in my mind was, it's a good job she had those glasses on.
Forensics would later identify the chemical agent as ammonium hydroxide, which is used as a cleaning product.
I was taken straight to A&E and seen straight away. They were fantastic, and I had my eye irrigated for about half an hour, just sort of lying on my side while they just flushed water and water through it.
While Sarah was in hospital, her colleagues worked to track down the criminal gang.
Not all of these males had got into the car, and there were fields nearby. So me and a few others went running into the fields to conduct searches for these males, hoping to catch one or more of them. But unfortunately, either they got away well before we got there, or they hadn't gone into the fields. And I went back to the station and we immediately started the investigation, piecing together all the evidence.
I went back to work to complete my statement for the day and do what I could, but obviously because I was a victim in the case, I was limited to what I could do and how I could get involved, so I did everything that I could.
I think the thing that struck me with Sarah's story is not just the way she responded to that incident and the incredible bravery she showed in dealing with that incident, but she was back at work later that day.
The offenders abandoned their car in a nearby village, and the police located it back to them. Over the next few months, the CID team worked very hard on the case.
I was involved in reconstructing the radio transmissions to get an accurate picture and a timeline of what had happened. It was listening over to what everyone had been saying over the air.
3 males still on foot, exercise. BMW has just flown past me down the road.
And having to listen to Sarah's screams again and again that was quite bad, to be honest.
Because of the dedication of the team, all 4 suspects were sentenced at court for offences including theft, burglary, assault, aggravated vehicle taking and dangerous driving. Although pleased with the sentences, Sarah still had to deal with the aftermath of the incident.
I went back into uniform the following week. My attachment had finished, so I was back in uniform doing shifts again. So wearing my stab vest and my belt was painful. I was referred to Ockie Health, and on speaking to the doctor in Ockie Health, he referred me for counselling because while we were talking about my back, he obviously picked up on different aspects of what had happened and said, I think you need to talk to someone about it. It was really difficult and it was really traumatic. I struggle with the fact that I didn't fight back and that I kind of allowed them to do what they did to me, but also know that if I had, I probably would have still been on that bike, because if I'd have had any sort of resistance to them, they'd have hit me harder and kicked me harder, which would have then stopped me getting out of the road. One of the officers that dealt with them afterwards interviewed the suspects, said they'd have run over me and they wouldn't have, was stopped I was in their way and that was it.
Don't know, it's not raw, it was raw for a while and it was quite scary, but I'll always say I think it would have been easier to deal with, and this sounds really quite cold, but if I'd have had injuries that were visible, because then I could, in my own head, justify why it was still bothering me. But because I was, and I'm so grateful that I didn't have injuries that everyone else can see, because there's always going to be a stigma around mental health and how it affects you and how jobs affects you, and there's always going to be this, oh, we'll just get on with it.
There is sort of mental scarring from it that I'll always have, but ultimately it won't stop me doing what I do now, and I'd probably do it again.
Despite the assault, Sarah decided to join her colleagues in the Criminal Investigation Department on a permanent basis.
Afterwards, I applied to be a detective constable permanently. I went back to uniform and there was an application process and an interview, which thankfully I passed. And I've been a detective for 3 years now. So on the back of what happened to me in a attachment as a detective, I decided that that's what I wanted to do long term.
They made me more determined to be a detective and to push myself and to work hard to pass my exams and complete the portfolio that you have to do. But I thought I'd be a response officer forever. Working with them and this happening, it sort of defined my career.
Sarah has been nominated for 2 awards, including a Police Bravery Award for the courage she showed in dealing with the events of that day.
Rightfully, her actions have been recognised both with a commendation locally from our Chief Constable and also a National Police Bravery Award.
It's overwhelming, unbelievable, and I'm very grateful.
I still don't consider what I did to be brave. I was doing my job and ultimately I'll do it again. It's what we get paid to do. It's not, I wouldn't say it's what we're expected to do, but it's what we expect ourselves to do. But yeah, the day was fantastic and I'm very grateful.